So hi guys, just as a number of you have asked, you were interested in some reflections of how the GDA2 rules played from this game. And I guess one of the key things was we had a brilliant time, as you probably saw that over the video. And as much as I like GDA1, clearly GDA2 rules are just as much fun, or I certainly found they are, as the first set. So certainly my GDA1 rules are looking pretty tattered and torn by now, given the number of games we've played. So I'll be almost certainly picking up a new set, even if it's just to replace the original ones that are so battered. But I think the game looks to be a genuine improvement. Obviously recognising we were only playing a playtest version, so they may well change. So anything I say here may be subject to being tweaked as Dave takes the rules to finalisation. But the biggest difference was the game's been simplified and speeded up. So we played the second Lutzen scenario, and as you saw, we had a lot of players. I think we were about 4 each side, playing with 8 or 9 brigades on each side, and we were able to bring the game to a very satisfactory conclusion with a day's play from about 10:30 in the morning till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, with an hour's break or lunch. So a good day's play. I've no idea how many turns we played. We didn't keep track of turns, but we must have done 8 to 12, 15 turns, probably more like 12 to 15 turns. So we got through a lot of action. So the rules have been really streamlined. The combat results are the major thing I'd note there. Easier to work. It'll take a bit of getting used to. It's a slightly different style. You don't have all the modifiers in the same way you did with the old rules. That's been stripped down, and basically you just need to roll 4+ on your dice for whether it's skirmisher fire or normal fire, so no confusion over that. And the number of dice you get to throw is tweaked up or down depending on whether you've got advantage or disadvantage in melee or combat or morale. So that is the biggest change, and I think a real strength. Command and control, which I always really liked on General Dame, is probably stronger than it was before. There's more of a role for a sort of core level commander, and some commander-in-chief specific orders that can be given. That adds a nice bit of gloss to the orders process. But otherwise, orders allocation feels very much like the previous version, with ADCs working in much the same way, slightly different points cost for each thing. It's easier to bring on reserves. Infantry assaults have to be reset each turn, but are cheaper. All changes for the good, I think. For skirmishers, as I say, you still got the skirmishers operating in much the same way, but the shooting mechanism is simplified and more straightforward. For artillery, again shooting is stripped down. You still can do artillery assault. Artillery is a little bit more mobile in the game. You can move forward and far with less penalties than previously, and counter battery fire is relatively more effective. So when I was chatting to Dave after the game and giving him some feedback, I guess that's one of the things I just wanted to check with him, whether he wanted a more mobile set of artillery batteries. I think the rules would encourage that. They will certainly encourage more counter battery fire. And as you probably heard in the scenario, one of the things the French did on the right flank was achieve artillery superiority with really effective counter battery fire. Took a fair while, took over half the game to get that artillery superiority, but then they certainly helped the French assaults go in later in the game. So artillery, a bit more forgiving for movement, and better at counter battery. I'd also note that units are generally more mobile, so the forwards orders seem easier to grant, easier to bring reserves on. We had a really wide table. We were playing a 10-foot depth, and we were able to deploy reserves from the baseline. We didn't play the more complex reserves rules that there are now, that Dave's now introduced for flank attacks and so forth, so can't really comment on those. But it seemed more flexibility and a big table width, again, worked well. So that's generally, I'd say, GDA still is a game that favours big battalions, which is and big armies. So one that really appeals to me and Charlie. And the final thing I'd note that feels quite different is we've changed the charge rules. So when you are on infantry assaults, you can still use supports, as you could in the previous rules, but from each brigade, only one battalion can attack. So it stops the situation where potentially a French brigade could assault a single British unit in line with 2 or 3 battalions by some careful positioning. Now, you can simply only attack with one brigade, but up to 3 supports to that brigade, so it provides a real focus for your attacks. I think that'll favour more medium-sized brigades. Brigades of 6 or 7 battalions strong, to me, will feel unwieldy, and there'll potentially be some sort of hitting power that's not being fully utilised. So there might be a little bit of tweaking there. I think the idea of only attacking with one battalion seemed to work really well as a concept in the game, didn't really disrupt the flow, and when units were in the attack, it still felt very much like the previous rules. So something to get used to, and a bit of a tweak, but again, I think a tweak for the good. So overall, in summary, we had a great day. Hopefully that came across in the earlier video. We really enjoyed the game. The rules felt very familiar. All of us who were playing have played the old GDA1 rules, and we slipped into GDA2 quite easily. We did have Get Dave coaching us, so he was able to step us through the rules tweaks and rules amendments pretty quickly, but big thumbs up from us, I think.